Just a quick one. Give me a second to tell you about the proud sponsor of the Hodcast, Site Ready Solutions. In construction, a world where time is tight and quality matters, there's no room for passengers. Site Ready Solutions are changing the game. They're not just getting people into the industry, they're getting them ready to deliver from day one. It all starts in the community, attracting local people who might never have thought of themselves being on a construction site. Then they're given real training, hands-on, hard graft, and to high standards. They're placed where they're needed the most, with the right mindset, skills, and the ability to be productive from day one. Then, importantly, they're retained through ongoing support and mentoring through progression. Because Site Ready Solutions don't just build workers, they build teams, they build trust, and they build futures. From street to site, they're helping everyday people become site-ready professionals, productive, prepared, and proud from the very first day they step on the job. Site Ready Solutions, local people, real skills, day one impact. Visit sitereadysolutions.co.uk and see how they're rebuilding the future of the construction industry, one person at a time. Thanks for listening. Justin, what does it really take to turn pain into power?
Do you know what? That's probably a question I've never been asked before, I don't think. How to turn pain into power? Do you know what? It's the definition of pain, really, isn't it? You know, it's physical pain, mental pain. There is loads of things when it comes to pain. To turn pain into power, I think you've got to, first of all, get a clear vision. Okay, get a clear vision of what that pain is to you, and what's going to be your end goal with pain, you know, and turn it into something. Have this long goal in your head, see that light at the end of the tunnel, and focus on it. And we all experience pain in our lives. We all go through some sort of pain, some sort of trauma and stuff like that. But for me, to turn it into power is to be confident in yourself, you know, and be confident to be able to share things and talk openly. And that power is knowing that other people can learn from your pain and see how you've come through it. So for me, that's probably, I guess, how I turn that pain into power, by being honest with yourself sometimes, you know, and open up and just want to help people, you know, because that is power, helping.
Well, we're fortunate. In a minute, we're going to sort of get into your work and your arguably pain and the way you've turned that into your superpower. But before we get there, I want to know about you sort of way back. I want to know about like young Justin.
Justin.
When you first started work, I don't know, some amount of years. I don't want to tell everyone how old you are, but what was your first day at work like? What did you do? What did you learn? Did you have a mentor? What was it that you were doing?
Yeah. So I'm going to take you back to young Justin now.
Okay.
So I've travelled the world. So my mum and dad,
all right.
my mum and dad got divorced when I was young, and she remarried an American. And when I was 11 years old, I left England to go live in America for seven years, something like that.
Wow.
And then after that, he got stationed in Russia. So I went and lived in Russia for 2 years. So young Justin, I never had an education. I was never in school long enough to get a qualification, and I didn't even finish school. So when I left Russia, because their school system was behind the American system was a little bit behind the English system, I had to sit back a year in a grade. So I was with kids who were 2 years younger than me, because they don't keep up with the grades as well as they do in America. So I left school with nothing. So for me, I never had an idea of qualification, skills, what I wanted to do with my life. Because I travelled, I was never long enough to say, right, I'll get a job here because I know I'll be uprooted and I'll go somewhere again. So I never had any education, didn't know what I wanted to do. And I had a couple of little jobs in factories. I started off in a warehouse packing tiles. I think it was Fired Earth, and it was just a little job to pack and get tiles done. I worked in a cardboard factory, stacking cardboard. And I thought that was going to be me in a factory. And I met my wife almost 24 years ago now. And we got together and we had kids. when I was 19, 20 years old. And her father worked in utilities. He worked for Alfred McAlpines back in the day. And one day he said to me, he said, Justin, do you want me to get you a job? And I was like, I know nothing about construction. I know nothing about utilities. I know absolutely nothing. And he goes, well, it's a good job that I'm the supervisor then, isn't it? So he said to me, I'm going to start you off as a barrier man. And I was like, what's a barrier man? And he's like, you're going to go around and drive and collect barriers. And I went home that day after me and her dad had that conversation. I said to my wife, I'm going to be a barrier man. She goes, you know nothing about collecting barriers. You know nothing about the utility industry. I said, I know, but your father said he's the supervisor, so I should be all right, and he's going to vouch for me. So I turn up to the yard on this day, and he gives me the keys to this pickup, and he goes, here's a list of phone numbers. Ring these people, and whatever they say, you do. And I remember getting into this transit pickup thinking, what am I doing? Like, he's vouched for me to say that I'm this experienced barrier man driver, you know, and I'm going to go around collecting all these barriers. I'd never really worked outside of Banbury, so I didn't know the area I was in. We was working in Kidlington, just by Oxford. And I remember sat in that yard thinking, what am I doing? And I drive to my first site. I ring the numbers on it, and I ring this one lad, and he says, right, can you bring me a full set of Chapter 8 out? And I need barriers, cones, sandbags for the signs. And I pulled up to this big site where they were laying some mains, and the lads got out with me, and they said, where's the Chapter 8? I was like, oh, God, no. He's like, where's the sandbags? And I completely forgot, and they ripped it out of me. And I mean, they tore me to shreds on site. And I was like, I can't do this. You know, I have no idea about this industry, but I learned, and that was my first memory of what am I doing on a construction site, never working in construction, never had any knowledge of construction. And I just thought, is this industry going to be for me? And that is literally my first memory.
How did you move on from that? Because there are loads of, and what were you, about 20?
20, 21-ish, yeah.
So we've got guys who are starting at Site Ready that are about that age. Some of them are a bit younger. It's not the most welcoming place, a building site. No. Or it's certainly, I mean, we're talking 20 odd years ago, right? Yeah. So it arguably less welcoming then.
Yeah.
How did you sort of get over that? What if I had one of the new starters from Site Ready here, what would you be saying to them? How would you encourage them? Because it is hard.
It is hard. You've got to take it. You've got to give and take, I think, in this industry. You've got to be open. And again, what I see sometimes is people sometimes don't like advice. And people think when you're given advice, when they were giving me advice, the teams on site, and I always say lads, and I don't mean as in there's no women in our industry, but the contract I was on, there was no women. So I always say the lads used to say this or the lads used to say that to me. And I used to think they were being harsh on me, and they were digging at me. And I didn't take their advice very well. Looking back now and having had people under me, apprentices and labourers, they weren't having a dig at me. They were trying to help me. They were trying to develop me, because the construction utility industry, it's a very loving industry. Not that people want to admit it, but we all want to help each other out on there, and we all want to have the banter with each other. And I took it personally sometimes, and I thought, God, they hate me. They don't like me. I've messed up. They're probably telling the other mates, God, Justin's useless and all this sort of stuff. And I realise now that they weren't. So if I had a young person in front of me, I'd say, be open to the advice. It's not criticism. It's not they're trying to put you down. They are trying to develop you. And it takes a lot to get that out of your head. And it took me a while to realise now, again, training people, that we just want to help people develop. And sometimes you have to be to the point. Sometimes it does sound harsh, but I don't think people are being harsh. So
it's interesting, isn't it? Because you don't, when you like go to school or college or whatever, like people aren't allowed to be horrible to you. So your teacher can't actually tear you a new one or take the mick out of you for doing something stupid.
Yeah, yeah.
And then when you turn up to a workplace, like for me, like it's almost a term of endearment.
It is. Yeah.
You know, people mug each other off every single day. And on the whole, generally speaking, they love it.
Yeah.
There are some days when you haven't got the headspace for it, right?
Yeah.
You know, your resilience battery is totally dead. And you're like, just leave me alone.
Massively.
Right, that's it, I'm off. you know. But it is difficult, isn't it, to get that balance?
Yeah.
And is there any, if you've got any sort of tips about how to find that balance for them?
Just take it in your stride, and again, don't get so beat up about it, and don't take it personal. Finding balance is being able to, and I think you have to give it as well. Now, there's a strong line when there's that cockiness. If a young person's in the industry and they think they have to come on, and again, I've experienced it before. They come on straight away from the get-go. They want to have that banter. They're giving it just as good, and you think it's their first day on site, and they're ripping it into people. And I think to find that balance, you've got to be humble. You've got to sort of let them. They've got to get to know you as well. They're taking the mick out of you a little bit, not because they want to put you down. They're working you out. They're sussing who you are, what your limits are, what we can have a joke about, what we can't have a joke. And again, to find that balance, give it back to them, but in a small dosage. Don't come across as if you're Mr. Know-it-all, because in the construction industry, there's a load of knowledge there. People have been doing it. You see people who are in their 60s still digging holes, still doing bricklaying. They've got so many years of knowledge, So to find a balance, you've really got to be able to give and receive, but in a right space and in the right amount as well. Don't try and be too cocky and think you're going to have a laugh straight away, because I think it does take a bit of rapport. You've got to build up that rapport with that person first before you can go straight in with the banter. It can be brutal, Yeah. Banter on site is brutal, but you've got to know that line first. If you rock up on site, if you're an apprentice and you start rocking up and you're taking the mick out of every single person on site, that rapport is not going to go down very well. So, like you said, that the balance is, don't be afraid to say what you've got to say, but do it in a small dosage, and don't come across as if you're going to be too cocky and arrogant and you know it all sort of thing.
For you, what's the difference? Because you've been all of these things, but what's the difference between a manager, a coach, and a mentor? Because they do perform slightly different roles. And in your sort of experience, what do those three things look like in the best case or the worst case, I guess?
Yeah. So I'll start with mentor, because I've been a mentor. A mentor is a fundamental part of construction or utilities, whatever the industry is, the construction industry. A mentor is a key compartment to that. Now, with a mentor, what I found is they were relying on my knowledge. So as a mentor, they rely on me to tell them what to do. And that's great. With a coach, which I've learned over time is doing a bit of performance coaching with people, is to be a great coach, you've got to ask questions. And I think this is where we get stuck in our industry, is because you become a manager now. So you say, right, you've now progressed to a manager. And I'm not saying this is everybody, but some people think, right, now I'm a manager, I need to tell you what to do. My job is to tell you what to do, how to do it. But that's not being a coach, that's just being a manager. So to be a coach, you have to sit on your hands sometimes and just listen for a little bit, because what you're trying to do as a coach is build people's self-esteem, because self-esteem to me is the bedrock to human performance. You want people to perform, or you want high-performing teams, well, then make them feel good. Make them feel good about themselves. So if I said to you, right, this is how I want you to do it, you'd be like, right, okay, so you're going to go off and do that task, and knowing that it's my idea, and if it goes right, we get praise. But a coach would say, how would you do this? What would be your input? Because of the effort they'll put in to doing that job, having it their idea. Oh, Justin, I think we should do it this way. If they then go off and do it, they're going to be going, if this goes right, this is my idea. And that's what creates a coach, is be able to ask a bit of questions a few times. Now, manager leader is a big thing. You can make anybody a manager in the industry. And I'm not downplaying the manager role, because it's a very key part, of our industry. But anybody could be a manager. But to be a great manager, you need to be a leader, in my mind. And to be a leader, you need to have followers. And that is the key part. Because, and I'm sure you've probably experienced this loads of times, if you left your job today, for example, how many people would go, he's gone, he's away? How many people would go, I'm going to go with him? And that is the difference, because to be a great manager, you need to lead by example, and you need to have people who buy into what you're about. And if you're building people's self-esteem, well, then they're going to say, well, I'm going to go where you want to go, because they believe in what you're doing and you're making them feel good about themselves. So that's how I would define the mentor, the coach, and the manager. And they are all completely separate.
That's the most insightful way I've ever heard that said. So thank you for start. I'm guessing, for me, someone who is doing that teaching role of bringing new people in needs to be some amount of all of those things, right? you know, they have to mentor and watch what I do and essentially sort of copy. And you know, and do it next to me. Mentor. You know, I guess like from what you've said, I feel like the coach is sort of behind. So if you think of sort of behind with and in front, so the coach is like behind, sort of encouraging forward. The mentor is sort of next to, like working with, and then the leader or the teacher is the manager is the one in front trying to sort of bring everyone with them. You know, which I love it. I love that. I could talk about this all day. I love.
Well, a mentor relies on, and for me, the only flaw with being a mentor is the fact that if you've been shown things by your mentor in the past that maybe not right, okay? He may have showed you a little shortcut years ago, and as a mentor, you need to pass that down, little shortcuts. That's where I think the flaw lies with a mentor a little bit, is that you may pass down something that is a shortcut that maybe has gone right for years, but you've got to hand that knowledge down to someone else who's now got this shortcut in their head. So for me, that's the only thing I don't like about the mentorship, is as much as it is so valuable, there are little flaws, because if you're handing down stuff that maybe not quite right that you were shown by a mentor, that's then been handed down, you see. So
I guess that's the really important part of being a mentor, isn't it? Because being a coach, you don't necessarily have that, because you're sort of asking and guiding. And being a manager, they're sort of they're just doing what you say. Not quite, but
no.
But yeah, the responsibility of mentorship is key, I guess, isn't it? That's the You
lose touch as a manager, and that's what I found going from like a barrier man for all the way to be a pipe technician to be a manager. As you start to go up, there's always been that us and them, hasn't there, in the construction industry? You're either one of the teams on the ground, or you're in that ivory tower in the office and stuff like that. And I found that with the manager role, I felt I'd lost touch, because you don't have that same banter anymore with the teams. It's like, oh, they can't tell you this anymore, or they can't say this to you anymore because you're a manager. And it was like, how do you keep I'm still one of you at the end of the day. You know, I'm still one of the teams. I just now have to do a bit more computer work, or I've got to sort out the toolbox talks in the morning, and I've got to do all this sort of stuff. So I've always struggled to feel or understand, how do you break that barrier between the manager role and stuff like that?
I don't know if you need to, though. Do you? I'm not a Man United fan.
No.
Right. Alex Ferguson, arguably the best manager.
Yeah.
Potentially. I mean, it's all opinion, right? But Alex Ferguson, one of the best managers to ever walk the planet Earth, commanded the respect of his team, and you know, he was their gaffer essentially. He wasn't a great footballer, but in his early days, I mean, he wasn't the best footballer, but he's probably the best manager. But he never. That, you know, they all respected him and did what he said, but he also brought people with him. And if, you know, you speak to, you know, you hear, I say speak to as if Roy Keane's my best mate. Do you know what I mean? But if you speak
ring him up in a minute,
that's it.
Have a chat with him.
But
he'll be on next, will he, on the podcast?
Well, he's busy at the moment, apparently. But if you speak to, you know, your Roy Keanes, your Gary Pallisters, your David Beckhams, the Paul Inces, the greats of that sort of era, they'd all say how much of a great manager he was, but how like scared they were of him, and not in like he's going to beat them up sort of way, but like they revered him, you know. And I think
He did kick a boot at Beckham.
Well,
so maybe there was
reportedly.
reportedly, yeah. I can't confirm or deny it happened.
Unfortunately, I wasn't there, so we don't know.
Yeah.
But what I'm getting at is the fact that he never was in the trenches with that team. Do you think it's... Maybe I know the answer. The transition from being a manager, from being a worker to a manager in the same space, do you think that's more difficult than being a manager, being a worker, say on one site or with one group of people, and then managing somebody else, and then maybe coming back?
Yeah, I think that's probably... You look at Lampard. If you're going to use the football analogy, you can take Frank Lampard. Chelsea. I know he came from another club before Chelsea.
West Ham.
West Ham.
They're my team.
Are they? Right. Okay. So West Ham, and he goes to Chelsea, and he becomes a probably one of the best Chelsea players, I'd say, undoubtedly. There's a few I'd pick, but he was one of them. But then he made the mistake of going back to Chelsea, and I think too soon. I think if he'd have gone off, like you said, take Chelsea as a site. And you've worked with that site for years and years and years, and now you're going to go and manage it. And he's got to come up with, build a new rapport with this team he's probably played with for ages, sort of thing. But I believe if he'd have went, I know he went to Derby and bits and pieces like that, but I think he went to Chelsea first. And if he'd have gone away, like you said, and managed a group of different people who he's got to build rapport with. He's got to understand them and know people, get to know people, get to understand people, what skill set they've got, what skill set they don't have. And then you come back to that site, or back to that team, in an example, and, redo it. I think it'd be good. But going back to like the Alex Ferguson, and you hit a good point there, and I wanted to... My short-term memory is shocking, and you said something.
We'll get onto that in a minute.
Yeah, we're gonna. You'll figure out why I've got a bad short-term memory. But you said something, and in my head I was going, come back to that. And you said about Alex Ferguson not being maybe a good footballer, but was a great coach or manager. And I want to use the word coach because that's what makes a great coach. I think when you said that, do I need to know everything about construction to be a good coach? No. You could coach anybody, I think, if you can ask the right questions. If you can ask the people if you can make them feel good, build them up, build that self-esteem, well then, no, I don't think you need to know everything about that industry. You don't have to be the best at that industry. If you know how to ask the right questions and you know how to talk to people, understand people, then sometimes knowledge is great, but it's not always going to be the foundation to being a great coach or manager, is it?
No, for sure. Well, let's get onto your short-term memory now, shall we?
Right. What was you talking about?
Yeah, I don't know. We don't know.
Yeah.
You own a company called Titanium Talks, and I know that comes from a deeply personal place. Can you tell us the story of how you got from being on the tools, as we just said, to now doing what you do with Titanium Talks?
Yeah, so I started Titanium Talks in 2015. So after spending, 18, 19 years in the construction industry, in 2015, I was actually involved in a near-fatal accident on site. And basically what had happened is I was called to a burst main, 2015. I'd done a hard week at work. I'd worked over 120 hours that week at work. So I was on standby, like call out. So 24-hour standby rota. Working in the water industry, you have to do a standby rota and you get called out throughout the day, throughout the night. If there's people without water and stuff like that. So I was doing a real busy week, and I got to a site one day where there was a 12-inch asbestos main that was leaking. And it was a straightforward job. It wasn't nothing out of the ordinary. It's a job I'd probably done a million times before. And I jumped into the hole. And again, I think this is where a lot of people in our industry will relate to this. I thought I was God's gift to the water industry. After doing it for so long, qualifications coming out of my ears, I thought I'd cracked it. So I had this moment of not wearing my PPE. So I didn't put a hard hat on, and I didn't put any safety goggles on. And I jumped into this excavation to repair this water main, and unfortunately someone turned the main on when I was making the repair, and the 12-inch clamp that I was repairing failed under pressure. At the time of the explosion, I had a torque wrench in my hand, and once the clamp exploded, the torque wrench was then catapulted straight into my face at 80 miles an hour and went straight into my eye. Knocked me unconscious, and my 19-year-old labourer who I was working with at the time actually managed to get me out of the excavation, and I was rushed straight to hospital. Went to Stoke Mandeville first, which is just by Aylesbury, but they couldn't deal with the injuries. My injuries were quite bad and they weren't equipped for the injury. And then I was then taken to the John Radcliffe in Oxford, where they discovered my whole face was shattered by the explosion, and everything from the top of my lip to the back of my skull was completely crushed, and a bit of my eye socket bone had shattered and got lodged into my membrane sac of my brain. And the doctors gave me a couple of years to live, basically, or have an operation that carried an 85% fatality rate. Now, for me, I had the operation done. Else, obviously, I wouldn't be here. Long story. I'm not going to go into the whole story because it's a long story. But basically, I was sent home to say goodbye to my family for an hour or so. Had to say goodbye to my 3 kids who were young. My daughter was 3, my son was 10 and 12. So I had to sit them down that night, say goodbye to them. And I went in for the operation, which consisted of them cutting me from one ear, up the side of my head, across the top, down the other side, took my face down, took my skull apart, got a bit of bone out my membrane. They put 8 stitches into my membrane. I've got like 49 plates, 36 screws. There's 2 pins that drill into the top of my skull. Blind in my right eye. My whole eye socket is made out of titanium. My nose bridge here is all made out of titanium. I've lost all permanent feeling in my face, so I've got no nerves left, so I can't feel any of this. The only feeling I get is at the bottom of my chin and at the back of my neck. I lost all the ability to walk and talk straight after the accident because I was, my nerves were all quite damaged. So I was left having 24-hour care every day. Someone had to bath me, feed me, clothe me, and stuff like that. And then after the accident, I decided, after a few years of recovery and stuff like that, I thought, what can I do? And I thought, you know what? Why don't I go out there and tell my story? Why don't I talk about my decisions that night, what led me to think I could do what I couldn't do and stuff like that. So I thought, my face is made out of titanium. Why not call it Titanium Talks? And I travel all over the world and I talk openly about what I did do, what I didn't do, what I should have done, and bits and pieces like that. So that led me from a career in utilities to having a huge accident, but to now talk about the accident, and in the hopes that people can look at me and relate to me and go, wow, he's been in the industry nearly 20 years and he had an accident.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a lot to... I could spend all day talking about the accident,
As a health and safety manager for a bricklaying company, that fills me with such dread.
Yeah.
The fact that it wasn't your fault.
No.
Because you didn't turn the main back on. And we're not going to go into the fault and stuff.
No.
I know that there was a big court case and it all
so we put in a civil case,
way,
and nobody was found at fault. So even the organisation I was working for, they wasn't at fault. The clamp just failed, and we don't know why it failed. The clamps are tested to like 26 bar pressure, but it failed under 10 or 8 bar pressure. I think it was running out at that time. And again, it was no one's fault. It was a pure accident that the clamp failed for some reason. They don't normally split like that. They don't know why the clamp split. And like you said, it's, we're not, I think with accidents, people, you can't blame sometimes. It's easy to blame people and say it should never have happened, but then I didn't do things, other people didn't do things, and that's just a part of it.
What was the breaking point for you? Not of the clamp.
That was the biggest breaking point. Was the someone said to me the other day, "What would you have done differently?" And I said, "Not got in the old to start with."
Picked a different career.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I should have stayed as a barrier man.
But what was the breaking point, or I guess like the moment of clarity that changed everything for you? So you've got in a hole. You've got knocked out.
Yep.
You woke up sometime later with like considerably less feeling in your face and a crushed skull and all of this stuff. What was the point where you decided, do you know what? Because it would have been really easy for you to go, by kids. Well, not easy,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
for you to like
Yeah.
deflate in that moment, right? And just
Yeah.
go, well, this is it. You know,
Yeah.
I've got some amount of time to
Yeah.
live, and that's it. What was it that sort of that changed the trajectory of that? Because there's a fork in the road there,
There
right?
is
You go left
massively.
or you go right, and you've chosen the
Yeah.
right path.
I think, and you know, I get asked questions all the time about the accident, and you think I'd get used to saying, this is the turning point. This is where, and I sometimes struggle, what was the turning point for me? Because you have to reflect on how he was feeling. And people say, how did you make that decision? You don't know. You can't prepare yourself to go, well, if it was me, because someone will say, Justin, if it was me, I'd do this or I'd do that. But if when you're in that moment,
But it wasn't you, mate.
but it wasn't you, and you can't say, I would do this or do that. And I think, as morbid as it probably sounds, I think for me, I looked at it as if I was dead anyway. You know, whichever one I was going to choose, I either live for 2-3 years, maybe. They couldn't guarantee it would be that long, or I could have an operation that could kill me the next day. You know, either way, I wasn't going to be here. And I think for me, the turning point was the family. I think because I don't think I could live for, say, 2-3 years knowing I was going to die. And then you got a Christmas with your family and say, right, this could be the last Christmas. This could be, I guess, is that cliche where someone say rip the band-aid off quick. Well, I say band-aid sometimes because I lived in America, so Mel always tells me sometimes band-aid, we call them plasters over. Rip the plaster off quick. And I think that was probably the turning point for me, is just get it done, get it ripped off quick, and let's see what's gonna happen, you know. And it was a gamble, and the gamble paid off.
What's the hardest truth that you've had to face about yourself along the way, if you excuse the pun?
Yeah. I think this is where I still struggle with this to this day, and it hurts. It really does hurt me, and it does pain me. But the truth that I had to realise is, all these years, and you're probably similar to me, and I think most people are similar to me, we always say our family's everything to us. And we say, do you know what? If you ever touch my family, I'll kill you. You ever hurt my family, I'll come after you. Because they are your Achilles heel, basically. And the truth I had to, when I was laid in bed one day, this is when it all came to me. All these years I've told people, if you ever hurt my family, I'll come after you. But I did it myself. You know, not wearing the PPE, not wearing the risk not following the risk assessment. And I know no one was at blame for the accident, but you always blame yourself. If you bump into someone in the street, you go, oh, sorry. Or if you knock into their way, sorry. You always apologise because you feel, oh, I should have moved out the way, or I should have done it like that. And I was laid there thinking, maybe if I would have worn my glasses, would it have not been as bad? You know, what if I would have had the main shut off, you know, and communicated a bit more on site about what I was doing? Would the outcome be different? So I think, do you know what? I destroyed my family by having this attitude that I was good at my job. I was amazing at what I'd done. You know, I could do this job blindfolded. And when I do my presentation, there's a slide that comes up when I do it. It's a picture of me. It's been drawn in a cartoon form, and I'm wearing a Superman T-shirt underneath my high-vis top. And that was my attitude. My attitude was I was good. And you say things like, I forget more than you'll ever know. And I think that was the biggest truth I had to come to terms with, is the fact that I done this. And people say I'm hard on myself, and I know I am hard on myself, but you feel like maybe I could have done something different, and it maybe was me, and you know, who hurt my family. And I think that's the truth that I didn't want to hear, or I'd like to admit, the fact that if I'd have done something different, would the outcome be different? Would, you know?
Yeah. Well, that's such a hard lesson to have learned.
Yeah,
And
massively.
I don't think I've ever thought about it like that before. That, you know, just because you're good at something doesn't make you invincible about it.
No one's invincible.
And, you know, and just because you've done something 1,000 times before doesn't mean it's going to go the same way as it did the last time.
I've repaired live mains for years. Never gone wrong. I look back now and think the jobs that should have gone wrong went right. And this because the job was all dug out for me. It was all dug out. It was all prepped. It was all, I took over from another team that had been there in the day. I was taking over for them because I was on standby and they had no issues. So why did it go wrong? And you look back and you think, what did I do? What didn't I do? Or what could I have done? But I've learned to let it go. That's the truth I had to admit, is the fact that I did it, and there are things I could have done. I didn't follow some rules, basically. And I admit that. I held my hand up straight away. And I said, no, I wasn't wearing a hard hat, and but then that was on me, I guess.
Yeah. But now the guys on site will know why I tell them to put a hard hat on.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Massively.
And yeah, I mean, and follow the risk assessments and all that stuff. And I don't enjoy, for me, I don't enjoy having to go around and tell people to do things that they don't really want to do.
Yeah.
People don't really want to wear their hard hat.
No.
It's stuffy. It's uncomfortable. It's just a bit annoying.
Yeah.
I get it. And 99,999 times, yeah, it is annoying. It's all of those things.
Yeah.
But that one time, it could have changed I mean, arguably, it's all turned out for the good, fortunately. But and again, like
I've got my last scan next month.
Well, we're in tiny percentages at this point, right? So the percentage of that, the possibility of that happening to you is minuscule.
Yeah.
But then, the possibility of you living is minuscule after the accident. And then, you have the possibility of a surgery, which is like a 15% chance of death.
Yeah.
It's like, if I said to someone, if you get in that car, you have a 15% chance that you're going to die, you are not going to get in the car.
Of course you wouldn't. No.
Not a chance.
No.
15 times out of 100, you're going to die in that car. Like, no, nobody's going to get in that car. Even 1%, nobody's going to get in that car. But you had to make that decision.
Yeah.
And that must have taken, I mean, obviously, ultimately it was your decision, but I know that you have you have your wife and a team around you and your kids, and you take all of that into account. But your untold resilience is, I imagine, I know that you talk a lot about resilience in Titanium Talks. It's not about just bouncing back, though. It's about sort of bouncing forward.
Yeah.
And what you think you knew about resilience then, how does that differ to what you know about resilience now?
You think resilience is just putting it behind you. And, that is a part of resilience. It's getting on with it. But for me, the new definition of resilience is, what can I do for other people as well? It's all right laying at home, which I did for a long time, lay at home thinking life's crap. Why me? Out of all the people, why did that clamp have to fail on me when they never normally fail before? And it took me a long time to get into my head, well, it's done now. I can't change it. I can't do nothing about it. The accidents happened. So for me, there was a turning point when me and my wife had a chat about what do you do now? And we both decided, get back up, go out there and try and prevent it from happening again. Get that resilience to go out there every single day. And it's hard to get up and talk about your accident. It's draining to stand on stage some days and talk for an hour and dive into it. But you just have to keep thinking, I've got to keep doing this, because when I get feedback from people who have listened and come up to me afterwards, or messages and emails, and they say, Justin, I've completely changed my way of how I thought about safety, my way of thinking about safety, and it drives me every day. It gives me that resilience every day to get up, go out there, because you never know. I might say something one day that changes someone's life. I may say something one day that they've gone, my family's everything to me, and I may be risking it a little bit at work by not doing this or not doing that, or thinking I'm great at my job, or not wearing this piece of PPE, and it's just that gives me the resilience just to keep pushing forward every day.
How do you do it without romanticizing the struggle, though? Because, you talk about, it's almost become your job talking about the accident you had. And some people sitting in whatever auditorium or wherever it is that you are, because you speak at big events and there are probably thousands of people.
Yeah.
How do you do it without romanticizing that struggle that you've been through?
I didn't at first. So I think maybe the first 4 or 5 talks, give or take, I left stage crying. And within the presentation, you see the kids come up on the screen. And I talk about the conversation. I talk about laying in bed with Betty, who was only 3 years old at the time, my daughter, and the conversation that I had with her. I think I was making little puppet noises, animal noises, because I was just trying to make her laugh, because that was my last 20 minutes with my daughter in my mind. And I would always get to that part of the presentation and I'd cry. And I'd leave stage. And I think one time that one of the men who booked me, when he was in the HSC department, he was like, we'll leave it there. And I never finished the presentation. And then what I started to do is realise that people are paying me to come and talk about the accident, to get the learnings from it, to be able to understand what drove the behaviour that day. And I thought, I have to get through it. I have to somehow block it upstairs to get through it. And what I do now is I get on that stage and I open my heart and I pour it out and I talk about everything about the accident. And I've learned to block it out. But then when I leave stage, I'll have my moment. So whether or not I'm driving home, or if I'm getting the train home, or if I'm flying home, that's when I have my moment. Is because I've done what I had to do. You paid me to come, I've delivered it, and then I've blocked it out while I'm on stage. As hard as it is, and it does choke me, I block it out. But then when I leave, that's when I get my time to reflect and just sort of think about it a little bit. And that way, everyone's won. They've got their presentation, they've had the safety message delivered as best as I could without crying through the presentation.
To be honest with you, mate, I'm struggling at this moment in time because I've talked about it before. I've not had my face like half ripped off. Don't get me wrong. And as you say, I've had some time in hospital, and you could argue that was my own doing, right. You know, from being overweight and all that sort of stuff. And I've never really thought about it like that before. And it does make me really reconsider behaviour.
Yeah. A little bit of advice for you, being in the safety industry. We talk about family as being, you ask 99.9% of people what's the most important thing to you. I guarantee everybody tells you it's their family. But I've struggled to believe that now a little bit, because I want to give you a little example of what we mean by just saying family isn't always enough. I'd done a talk and I talked about the family, and this scaffolder came up to me afterwards and he said, Justin, you're absolutely right, mate. He said, family's everything to me. He said, I've just got a young daughter. She's 8 months old. And he said, she is everything to me. And I was like, fair play, mate. I'm really glad you took that on board. Now, what we did later on that afternoon was site visits. So we went round to the sites, to the people that I was speaking to, and there he was up on scaffolding, not clipped on, and his supervisor went mad, and he called him down, and he walked over to us. After him telling him about not clipping on, I just had a quick word with him. I said, family's everything to you, isn't it? And he went, yeah. I went, it can't be. I said, because why didn't you clip on? Why would you risk not going? If you're saying everything's, if family is everything, why would you not risk clipping on and not going home to your family at the end of the day, because you could have fell off? You know, you could have got seriously hurt, and you jeopardised that because that was your decision not to clip on. So it's okay to say that family is everything, but you've got to prove it. You've got to follow the rules. You've got to follow the risk assessments. You've got to wear the PPE. You've got to work to the safe standards that you can. And that's how you prove that family's everything to you, by going home to them.
Yeah. I had the fortune of going on, it was a thing on Fixed Radio with Ash Mahoney, and talking about health and safety, and that was one of the questions, like almost like, why do you do what you do? Yeah. And I really have to be careful what I say now, because I don't want to downplay what I do and trivialize it. Let me put it this way: the thing that I care about is people going home to whoever it is that they go home to, whether that's their kids, their mum and dad, their goldfish, their dog. It doesn't really matter. That's why I do my job, because that is important to me. Yeah. And people, I can get shouted at on a site, and I can do this and that and the other. And, I've taken people's tools away before. I've caught them cutting with no mask or something. Right, I'll take the cutter then. That's my cutter. Well, come and get it off me, or come and get it off the site team when you have got some PPE, because you can't do that. Yeah. I'm the one who's going to have to ring your wife, your mum, your whoever it is, and say, I'm really sorry, Barry the bricklayer's not coming home today because through no fault of his own, the disc broke on his 4-inch grinder, or his, and it came off and it's gone into his face. I don't want to have to do that, and arguably, that's selfish of me. I don't want to have to do that. But also, like, imagine their response to that. And, we've talked a bit about your wife's response, and I don't want to go too much into that because that's her story to tell, essentially. But it's not fair.
No.
If and you didn't step into that hole thinking I'm not wearing my hard hat because I don't love my family and I don't want to go home at the end of the day.
Yeah.
You didn't wear it because it's just it's just what people do. It's the
Nobody
lowest.
leaves their house at the end of the day, at the beginning of the day, and say, "Do you know what? I'm going to try and work as unsafe as I possibly can today. Do you know what? I might not come home today." We don't talk. We don't do that. But ultimately, you get lost somewhere on site. You get lost somewhere on the job where it just gets fogged, doesn't it?
I feel like it's like they sort that in some areas, like they call it. Simon Sinek talks about it like social erosion.
Yeah.
So there's tiny little erosive bits that, I left my gloves in the car and I can't be bothered to walk back and get my gloves. So I'll just do this. Or, I left the water bottle in the, in the van or in the site office and I've only got 2 cuts to do and I could do them quicker than I could do to walk and get the bottle and come back. So, what's the worst thing that's going to happen on 2 cuts? And whilst, I understand that. Arguably, should have just bought it in the first place.
Yeah.
But hindsight's a great thing, It's like people turn around to you and go, well, I would have done... Well, of course you would.
Yeah.
Because it's already happened to me and you now get to choose. But I guarantee you don't.
Yeah. Do you know how many times I used to sit on, I'd go and see be at a safety conference, as on the tools, and you sat there and you're watching that person on stage and you're going, sounds a bit harsh, but you're going, what an idiot. I would never do that. What made you think you'd get away with that? And for years I'd sit there, or you'd see a video. Like in the yard, they show videos sometimes of someone who's been electrocuted or cut through a cable or hit a cable with a digger or a bucket, and you think, God, I wouldn't have been that stupid, or I wouldn't have done something like that. And now I'm sat here on the other side of the seats, I guess, talking about the stupid thing that I did. And you think, you sort of poacher term gamekeeper a little bit, aren't you? And I think what I've come to realise, and this is why I feel for you, because I'm not in the safety profession, so to say. I talk about safety, I talk about it, but I'm not a safety professional.
No, you're a help.
You're a help
for me,
But I look at someone like yourself, and for years, and I'm not making this up. This is the truth because I've worked in this industry for years. We look at the health and safety professional as a hindrance to what we need to do. And you think, or I used to think, and so do a lot of probably other people, that you're sat in this tower and you're going, how can I make their lives harder today? And now I'm poacher turned gamekeeper. I don't get it. Your job is to make sure that they get home to their families at the end of the day, and we hate you for it. And I've now had this new found respect for the health and safety professional. For someone who's looking out for us every day. Your job is to look out for me. It's to look out for them on site. It's to get them home to their family. And now I see it. I couldn't see it back then for a little bit because you do get wrapped up in there. You've got, oh great, we've got an audit. You rock up with your car and you get your clean hivers out the boot, innit? And you put your new riggers on, and you've got your clipboard, and you're thinking,
you've got me down to a T.
Oh, I tell you, been around the block, and it's a weird thing because you see him coming and you think he's going to make this day so much harder than it already is, but you're not. And you know what I love now, that the new game that we've developed in the UK of cat and mouse. So what you'll say to me is, right, let's say I'm not wearing my safety glasses. You'll give me a bit of a dressing down, saying, Justin, you need to wear your safety glasses because it's important. I get a little tick on your audit sheet, and then you say to me, when I get to Billy on that next site, he better have his glasses on. And you leave site, what do? I ring Billy. He's on his way around, isn't he? He's doing. When you turn up to Billy's site, guess how he looks? Absolutely perfect. And all we're trying to do is avoid you. We're trying to help people escape you coming around and doing all.
So that's why. So that's why, and I'm actually really, really, really blessed, and I don't tell them enough.
Yeah.
My team are excellent, and I say my team, they're not actually my team. I see them as my team. I don't work with any of them day in, day out. And I'm talking the site managers, I'm talking the 200 plus bricklayers that we have, or the 200 plus operatives that we have out on site. I am really blessed because, and from my MD as well, I don't have a quota, a target, and anything that I need to hit. I don't have it.
Right.
Other safety people have it. They have scoring that they have to do, right? My role is based around culture, and I'm really blessed to have that role, because what it means is, and it goes back to the manager, coach, mentor. So I have the opportunity to coach our guys when I'm on site. A lot of the time I walk around and they don't even know that I'm doing any form of audit whatsoever, because I have it on my phone now. So I'll use the app that I won't say it because we're not sponsored by them and they won't pay me any money. But I use the app and I just have it on my phone as if I'm like, they wouldn't be able to, if I'm sending a text, if I'm sending a text or doing whatever. But I'll walk around, and I'm not naive enough to think that, you know, they've seen me walk in the gate, so like they may be a bit, and they do sort of revere me a little bit. Like some sites will start tidying up when I arrive, and that's not really what I want. What I want is them to be tidy anyway. And they get that. And, you know, there are some people, what I really love is when people phone me and say, Sam, I've just been asked to do this thing on site. I don't want to do it because it's not safe. I'm like, yes. And then they say, how do I go about that? And I can say to them, don't worry, I will go to town on whatever it is. I have to establish whether it's they don't want to do it or they're going to make less money if they do it a different way. Those two things maybe work together sometimes. Sometimes they work. Those things work together. I had a phone call yesterday about something. There's a new way of doing something. I don't want to talk about it because I don't want to sort of unravel the can of worms. But I had a phone call and they asked me, I don't think this is safe. Is it in our risk assessment? I said, well, have you not read all 133 pages of the RAMs? Because if you had, then you would know. You know, they read the relevant bits, and I've actually made a relevant I've actually made a document that goes with the RAMs.
Right, okay.
That they can, the sort of key takeaways. Which is right at the front.
Right.
So they've more chance of reading it. But they said, I don't feel like this is safe. Am I allowed to do this? And if I do it, am I going to get kicked off site? It was to do with hot works and something. We don't generally do any hot works or anything like that, but we needed to, for this particular job, we needed to. It was like sticking down something, and the tape didn't quite work properly. So they had to like heat it up to make it stick. Well, you need something to heat it up with and all that stuff. So they said, can we do that? Is that allowed? And I said, well, have you got the correct PPE for the job? Yes. Have you got the correct tools for the job? Yes. Have you got the correct area to work in for that job? Yes. Do you have safety procedures in place to ensure that if the worst did happen, something is done about it? Yes. Well then, bar a freak accident, like a clamp going or whatever it is, bar a freak accident, we have done everything that we can. You have done everything that you can. I'm super grateful for your phone call. I'm really glad that you phoned. Firstly, I'm really glad that you phoned me. Because I love it. You know, I'd much rather my phone ring 100 times a day and have no accidents than ring no times a day and have one. You know, so thank you for ringing me. You're doing all the right things. I'll come and check next time I'm there that is okay, or send me a video of you doing the job and all the stuff. And then we've backed ourselves up, and that's why I'm blessed. Don't get me wrong. Not everybody does that.
No.
All the 200 people that are on site, and people make mistakes every day. I make mistakes every day. The difference between me making a mistake every day and you in the whole making a mistake or something happening is, when I make a mistake, it's a piece of paper that doesn't get passed from place to place, or something that doesn't get passed from place to place. When something happens to you, or you make a mistake, or our bricklayers out on site, there's there's a 10-ton wall falling on somebody,
fatal.
or exactly. That's the difference between my mistakes and their mistakes. And maybe that talks to the divide.
Yeah.
Because actually, like, there is a difference like that. The mistake, the difference in management, right?
Yeah.
It's the different type of mistake. Maybe if I make a mistake, we lose a bunch of money. But no one dies. Whereas, or maybe someone has died and then we lost a bunch of money. But do you know what I mean? So it's really difficult to. I'm really blessed to be able to have such a great culture within our workplace, and it goes back to that. I don't want to have to ring anyone's other significant other. I think that's
the skin you've got to put on as that manager, as that sort of thing. Is I'll be the bad man on site, and I don't mind it. And when I became a manager after the accident, I said to my team, "Call me what you want to call me. There's nothing you can say to me that's going to hurt my feelings." I probably said a million times to myself after the accident. Man, I've probably been as brutal as you can be, to myself. I said, "Call me what you want. Have a go at me. Shout at me." I said, as long as I'm not the one who has, like you said, who has to ring your loved one and say, "You ain't coming home today." And I'll be that person. Take it out on me, frustrate on me, swear at me, do that. If it makes you safer or feel better, then I'll be that person, because like you said, you're trying to create that culture where they can, and you highlighting, like you said, you highlighting that team who rang you to say, "Can we do this?" and not having a go at them has probably spoke volumes to the rest of the team and gone, "Hey up, he hasn't been, oh, you're just trying to waste time, or just get on with it." If anything, they're thinking, well, I don't mind getting a bit of praise. I might ring up next time I'm unsure on something, or next time something's not going my right. I wouldn't mind a bit of praise from you, to be fair. So all you've done is, like you said, you've created that culture. It's okay to speak up. It's okay to raise your hand and say, "I don't know how to do this," or "I'm not sure about this one." And you haven't been ridiculed. They haven't been labelled a time waster or someone who's just trying to get out the job. And we've said this word about 10 times now, culture. You've created a culture within your team that it's okay to speak up. And that is psychological safety. It is in fear of being ridiculed if you're going to stop a job, being labelled time waster or just trying to get out of it, or lazy. But in fact, that team's probably gone away and gone, "Wow, we had a chat about it. And look how you resolved it." And the rest of the teams are going, "Guess we all can now."
Well, that was easy.
There you go. And that's how you create the culture of safety, is having the conversations. You didn't shout at them, tell them what to do or get on with it, or "I ain't got time for this," or whatever. It takes a lot of courage to stand up and tell somebody, "I don't know how to do it," or "I haven't been shown how to do this," instead of just cracking on with it,
That's the thing about it. Like, and I'm going to be a bit more vocal about this online and just generally, because what I question, we talked in the car on the way here about what people say and what people hear.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's in bigger companies, the top people say things, and it filters down, and what people hear changes as it comes down.
Yeah.
So if you said to the top corporate people, what did you say to these people?
Yeah.
They'll have said one thing. And then if you said to, I don't know, your Barryman or your whatever, what did they hear?
Yeah.
Because it's gone through some amount of levels before it's got there. I find that really difficult because everybody's trying to get a job done, especially, in the house building industry. You've got a scaffolder, a carpenter, a bricklayer, a ground worker, an electrician, a plasterer, all trying to work on the same plot. And some of our like higher rise stuff, they're all trying to do it at the same time. Normally, sort of your housing developments, we go in, and then the scaffolder and the carpenters are the normal, like the chippies are the normal trades that we work with. But people are trying to cut corners to save money. Yeah, and I get it, because it's really hard at the moment. We were talking about that in the car on the way. It's really hard at the moment to make money in this country and make a good amount of money as a company in this country. That's not a political thing. It's just fact right now. It's just fact. We're in a really tough situation. You can say what you like about the powers that be, but it just, it's stoicism, the way it is, just the way it is. We can't control it, so the obstacle is the way. Yeah. it's really hard to do that at the moment, and that leads to a race to the bottom, rather than a race to the top.
Yeah.
You know, and health and safety is normally the first thing that goes out the window
Massively.
when you are losing money, because you're like, oh well, if we can do away with this scaffold lift on all of these plots, that's like 100 plots that we could do away with a scaffold. If that's $1,000 each, that's 100 grand we've just saved by, you know, making the bricklayers go a little bit higher and, you know, and making the chippies fall a little bit further. Like, oh, okay, is that?
Well, margins are getting squeezed.
And it's not that, it's nobody's fault.
And that's what I mean. If their margins are getting squeezed at the top, well, then they've got to squeeze that margin down. And if you've got a contractor under there, he's got to squeeze his margins. And then if his margins are getting squeezed, everybody is getting squeezed. And I think, like you said, that's where safety takes a massive back seat, because it's no longer how safe can we do it, it's how quick can we do it. How quick can we get this done to make that money? That if you're on price work, it's shocking that safety has to take a back seat. I'm not saying it does, I'm just generalising. But, you know, it takes a back seat because it becomes, if I don't get that done, I don't get paid. I don't get paid, don't feed the family.
But how productive, with the best one in the world, how productive are you after you get a torque wrench in the face at 85 miles an hour?
Exactly.
You're not very productive for a considerable amount of time.
Massively.
You know, so...
And there's the cost implication. So, again, I will talk about this when I do the full presentation, I call it. And you look at me not working for over a year. You know, now your bills still have to be paid. So people don't see that side of things, that if it goes wrong, it will probably cost you 10 times more if you just stopped for a second and maybe lost a pound or £2 on a brick. Let's say you're getting paid whatever. I don't know what brick. I don't know what brickies get paid because I've never done brick laying. Let's say you get £3 a brick.
Oh, mate, you're good brick. About 70p.
About 70p. That shows you why I'm not a bricklayer, doesn't it? I'd probably only lay a couple of bricks a day, sort of thing. Let's say 70p, and you might have to sacrifice that 70p just to do a bit safer. But like you said, that 70p, if the job goes wrong because you sacrifice safety, that 70p could now be 7,000. It could be your mortgage. It could be debt collectors. You know, it could be people knocking on your door. Why haven't you paid your bills? Because you're laid up and you're self-employed, so you're not paying your bills. So when you look at safety and you look at the cost and the margins being squeezed, yeah, they are. And I don't think we can change that. I don't think we can change the way that the world's going at the minute, where everyone's trying to squeeze as much as they can out of every single job. But that's when you've got to step back and go, what is that money worth if I'm laid up, or worse, you don't make it home that day?
Yeah.
That's 70p, or that's that couple of quid you've lost or whatever. And I know it's easy to say it now, sat this side of it, and I've had an experience to make me see a whole complete different light. But that's why I do Titanium Talks. That is part of I've made the mistakes. Do not make the same mistakes that I made. Don't follow in my footstep. Think about, you know what, it could lead to something 10 times worse if I sacrifice that safety. So I guess it's just trying to underpin the fact that we know it's a hard world, but at the end of the day, safety has to come first, no matter what.
Well, and also, even if you do put in a court case, you're not getting paid like tomorrow.
No.
You know, you probably. I don't know. I mean, you don't even have to say, but I know that. Well, I was in a car accident a few years ago, and it took like a year to see payment from that, and I wasn't like super injured. Yeah. But I was injured enough that it impacted my life. But even like a month's worth of time, still didn't get paid for like 12 months.
No, so we put it in a civil case against, the company. And again, it wasn't against them because they didn't do anything wrong. No. They weren't at fault. But again, you like to be compensated if something has gone wrong. Because there's a duty of care, that sort of thing. And it went on for 4 years. That 4 years it's hard. It's,
I'm guessing you didn't get any money until that was complete.
No.
Yeah. So even if you do end up having some sort of severance or whatever the package is at the end, it has to be complete until you can get that. Well, who's paying the bills for 4 years? Yeah. When you could have, for you, it's a bit different because it was a.
When I say I wasn't working, the company was still paying me, so they were good. They were still, helping Mel out. They were helping me out. They were helping the family out, and they were really good to us after the accident. So I can't fault them. No. They were brilliant. They helped me and the family out. But then when I had to leave the company, because I couldn't continue working, because not only was I not in a great space, I got diagnosed with PTSD about 2 years after the accident, which led to me not being able to do the role as a manager because I was just too gone up there, because I was kept dwelling on everything. So we had to part ways. And then when I parted ways, where I had that comfort blanket of my employer was paying me while I was off and stuff like that, then I had nothing then. And it was like, wow, we didn't know when the court case was going to be resolved, and it could have gone for another 5-6 years, and they weren't dragging it. The system is a long, it's a long process.
People have to do due diligence, and you have to find reports, and you have to make sure. It's just
it was all
facts,
we had to have surgeons reports, specialist reports. We had to have a face specialist, an eye specialist, a brain specialist, bone specialist, mental health specialist, psychologist specialist, and we had to have all of these tests done. And again, it's not the company that's saying we want to stop it. It's because of the process of waiting for doctor reports. Sometimes they don't just go, "Oh, Justin's my number one priority," because it doesn't work. I'm not their number one priority.
And especially, like you are when you're on the operating table, but afterwards, when it comes to a lawsuit
just someone
or whatever,
who has a case in for an accident that's happened at work, and there's probably a billion of them cases that they have to deal with on a daily basis. But what happens is, and this is where a lot of the mental health came into it for me, I was sat at home because I had nothing to do. I had to wait for that post man every day, or an email, and I'd sit there and wait to see if that email pings with any news. No, one day, no news, and then the next day I'm sat there waiting for an email, no email, and I'll wait the next day, and I'm waiting every day, so there's an update. Is the report in yet? Is this done? For 4 years, you sit there and you wait for a phone call, and you wait for an email, and you wait for all this stuff, and it was that's another story. The legal aspect of it, HSE, when they come and see you about the accident, and you think, oh mate, I'm such an unsafe worker, and I'm not. I just made there were mistakes made throughout it, but they have to ask you these questions, in bits and pieces, and you think, oh man, they're gonna, it was a hard journey. It was a very tough journey, but what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, and I think that was. Again, that what builds the resilience is I'm still here today to tell the journey that I've been on over the past 10 years, and we're having a party in October because I still have one more scan left before I get discharged from hospital. So it's been 10 years since the accident, and I still haven't been discharged yet, because when you have a lot of stuff done that I did, you're under the neurosurgeon for 10 years, because it can take 10 years for your brain to even settle down after an impact like that. So in November, I've got my last scan. So we're having a huge party. So then hopefully I'll be discharged from hospital, and I'll be given the all clear. I'm classed as stable at the moment, but I should get the final all clear in about a month or so. So it'd be great.
In case you didn't know, in construction, trust is everything. You trust your team to show up. You trust your tools to perform. And when the pressure's on, you trust your supplier to deliver. That's where Grayson Building Products come in. They've been doing this since 1921, and they've built more than just a business. They've built relationships, expertise, and a reputation that is earned, not claimed. With over 50,000 products in stock and a team of specialists who genuinely understand the craft, Grayson is there. Not just when you order, but when things get complex. It's more than just a price. It's partnership. It's peace of mind. If you want a supplier that moves like part of your team, visit grayson.gb.com and see what real service feels like. That's amazing. Where do you see Titanium Talks in 5 years' time?
Still doing what I'm doing. Still talking, still being at conferences, speaking to people. I would love to have other people come on board for Titanium Talks who maybe feel they could add value. Maybe they've got a story completely different to me, but they don't know how to share it, or they want to share it, but they don't know if they can share it, or is it going to have an impact on something. So I'd like to be able to have it more as a place where people can come and talk to an industry or whatever the industry may be about their experience, how they've had to cope with different, because I think hearing personal experiences is amazing. I think hearing firsthand, when you can sit and touch the person who's been through that and go, wow, he's still here, or you can see the emotion in their face, and if anyone can get learnings from that, I think how valuable is that to be able to look at somebody and see what they've been through and how they've bounced back and just give somebody hope. So I'd love for Titanium Talks to be somewhere that people can go, Justin, any help on how to go out there and tell my story to help people, grow and develop. So that's where I could see it in 5 years is, and then again, maybe having my sons talk, having them come on board with a business and them talking about what it's like for their father to go through an incident, and speak about it from their point of view.
Yeah, that'd be super powerful.
Yeah.
That would be really powerful. We have a skills gap in this country. Vast skills gap. A lot of people talking about it online and stuff at the moment, and the government and all this stuff. Site Ready Solutions we believe we've got the solution with our teams, with the teams element that we're trying to bring in at the moment. But if you had a magic wand and could do something, how would you close the skills gap, or what would you do to close that skills gap, do you think?
Do you know what? This is probably a question that gets asked for everybody, isn't it? I think massive shortage. I even spoke to my labourer a while back when he was trying to get somebody to come with him, and he's like, I'm struggling to get anybody to come and want to dig a hole and do. It's not attractive for people to think. I think social media's got a little bit to play with why people aren't coming into this industry, because they see these influencers now making money for just putting a TikTok up, or you've put an Instagram video up that's got a X amount of shares. And again, I'm not saying anything about podcasts or anything like that, because these are great. I love doing this. But it's made it to the point where why go dig a hole or why build a wall all day, and I can just put a video up and maybe potentially make some. So it's become not attractive to do it anymore. If I had a magic wand, I would make the schools a little bit push the construction industry. I had a great career. The construction industry for me got me everything that I needed in life. It got me a house, it got me a car, we went on holidays, the kids had stuff. I had a great life working in this industry, a very good life. So it is attractive. It's just not pushed, I don't think, as much as I'd like to see in schools. Everything's about, and again, I'm not an expert in this, but what I see, and this is only my point of view from what I've seen, everything's about degrees, everything's about diplomas, everything's about that sort of thing, where what's wrong with saying we need bricklayers in this country, we need scaffolders in this country, we need plumbers in this country. My son's a plumber. I said to him, don't ever feel that just because I had an accident, that's a bad industry, because it's not. I said, a tradesman is, in my mind, sometimes the backbone to this world. The fact that we need water, we need electric, we need places to live, we need roofs over our head. I think the tradesmen people are the backbone to society. So I said to my son, I didn't want him to do external plumbing like me, just for the fact that my wife said to him, "You're not working
much smaller gauge."
She said, "You're not working outdoors in this stuff." He's like, because he was going to come on board and do what I did. And Melanie's like, no, and I was like, go indoors, mate, and do that. So we said to him,
just put your hand down toilets instead of.
My eldest son's an engineer, electrical controls engineer. Wow. So I always said to my kids, this industry is a great industry. It just needs to be made a bit more attractive to the younger generation, that it's a job forever, if you ask me.
It's a profession, right?
Profession, yeah. You're professional tradespeople who do a skilled job. We need lawyers, we need doctors, but we also need tradesmen. So again, to answer your question, that magic wand is make it attractive to kids in schools, that it's a great industry to come in. It's not just it takes a toll on your knees or your back, or you're going to get muddy all day, but it's a great industry, and I loved it, and it done wonders for me.
And if you had I'm going to give you the microphone this time. Right. If you had every single apprentice, someone who's in training in the construction industry, what piece of advice would you give them? They're already in the industry, they're training to be the next professional whatever. what advice would you give them?
The same advice my dad gave me, and my granddad. He always used to be a lover of this quote: "Do things right the first time round, because you don't get a I say you don't get a second go round. I've been given a second lease of life, but some people aren't as fortunate as me, who sadly have been killed to a workplace accident. So my advice to them would be: do it right first time round, because you may not get another go. You may not get a second chance to correct it. You may not. I know we are going to make mistakes and we are going to mess up sometimes. We are human. We do make mistakes. But a lot of mistakes that we make could be avoided if we just stepped back for a second and actually thought about what we were doing and how it could affect us. So for me, to say to the young generation coming in, it can be a dangerous industry. You know, it is high risk industry as well. Just take your time. Take your time. Do it right. Do it safe, because you might not get that second chance.
And we have a bit of a closing. Well, we don't have a bit. We have a closing tradition on this podcast where you get to pick who you would have sat in your seat right now. So somebody, who would you pick to come and have a conversation with me on the podcast?
Who would I pick? So for me, I would love my wife to come on to the... Now, I'm sure most people say about someone who's quite well known in the industry, or someone who's been online or famous and stuff like that. And there's loads of famous people I'd love to come and sit and listen to. But to get some value, my wife, Melanie, doesn't talk about the accident. She doesn't share it. She finds it very hard to speak to people. If someone asked her about the accident, she goes red. You can see her tears start to fill up with and you can see it's really, really affected her. And she's never shared her perspective of my accident. And I think her story is totally different. Whatever she says is completely different to me, because she was the one who got the phone call that night to say there'd been a bad accident. She's the one who had to have a husband who couldn't do anything for himself. She had to run a house with 3 children. Her story, I think, is incredible. And I get a lot of the limelight. I get a lot of these, so I win a lot of awards. I won Speaker of the Year award for this safety event I was at, and I've won the Construction Excellence Award, and I always get the limelight. And I think, you know what, I'm not always the hero of this story, and I'm not always the forefront of it. My wife rebuilt everything by herself, and I think I'd love her to tell people her journey. I don't think she would, because she's tried to sit through a presentation before and she's left crying because she just doesn't want to hear it. She relived it. It's bad enough the first time round. But I think I think a lot of women would resonate with Melanie. I say Mel, she loves to be called Melanie. She hates Mel. So that's why I keep going Mel then Melanie, because I know she loves Melanie. I think she would make a massive impact in our industry, having a wife's point of view of what it was like to receive that call. And I'd love her to come and share it with you.
Well, thank you. So would I.
Whether or not we do, I mean, it's a conversation I want to have with her.
I'd love to. I would love to have that conversation with her, because I think that you're right. There's a lot of heroism and stuff among those who have accidents and live through it.
Yeah.
But it wasn't you feeding you. It wasn't you dressing you. Yeah. It wasn't you taking you to the toilet. Exactly. It was her. It wasn't you receiving the phone call.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming on, Justin, and you look great.
Thanks for having me.
You've completely had your face reconstructed.
Changed my whole perspective on.
I was going to say, were you this good looking before, or have they sort of enhanced you a bit?
So I gave him a picture of David Beckham.
Okay.
I think he ruined it. I think he messed it up, to be fair.
Yeah, they didn't quite get there.
No, that's what I mean. I thought, almost. You know what I mean? You one chance to have your face redone, and do you know what? But it changed my whole perspective on a lot of stuff in life. Like, I know you mentioned football, and I love football. But do you know what? I used to worship some footballers as they were gods. And I think my surgeon had his life in his hand. What praise does he get? What recognition? And it completely changed what's important sometimes in your life. So yeah, my recovery's been amazing. And do you know what? This is my first ever podcast that I've done. And I've enjoyed it. It's been absolutely, and you've been amazing. You've made me feel comfortable. And just talking, it feels good to talk. It really does. Just get things off your chest and be able to talk freely and openly. And Absolutely amazing. You know, I'd recommend anybody come on here because it's been a good time.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're an absolute legend. Thank you so much.
Cheers. Thank you.